pleasure to be joining you on this edition of the India Development Debate. I'm Supriya Shrinate, and we put the spotlight to the big debate of the day today. A 5-judge bench headed by Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi appointed a 3-member panel to mediate on the historic Ayodhya dispute. The panel will be led by former Supreme Court Judge FM Kalifullah, senior advocate and mediation expert Sriram Panchu and spiritual leader Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, and will submit its report in the next 8 weeks. Hindu Mahasabha, a key stakeholder, is against this mediation process, and controversy has already erupted over Sri Sri Ravishankar's appointment in the first place. The apex court pointed out that Ayodhya case is not about property, but quote-unquote about mind, heart and healing if possible. Undeniably, this is a big dispute, one that has of this country and one that has been used for partisan political gains for some decades now. Could there finally be an end to this dispute and a resolution in sight? What does today's order of the Supreme Court really mean, and how is this really going to impact India's economy and the country at large? Let's take this straight forward to a stellar panel that's joining us right here. I've got Nirja Chaudhary, political commentator and columnist, R. Jagannathan, senior journalist, Ilyas Shafuddin, the Islamic scholar, and Karthik Chopra, spokesperson of the Nirmohi Akhara. So thank you very much, each one of you, for being with us. And Nirja, if I may start with you, what does today's Supreme Court referral to a mediation panel really signify? Is mediation the only way out? It hasn't worked in the past. Why do you believe it's going to work now? What is the Supreme Court really thinking about? It has not been opted for earlier.
For this, for the Supreme Court to adjudicate on this issue, whether there is a mandir or a masjid, is a very difficult one. It is all right for it to adjudicate on a title suit. So, in a sense, they have taken the best way out for them. Mediation, if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, that's, they tried their best. Secondly, I would really like to believe, I would really like to hope that for India's sake, for the sake of the two communities, a way could be found out through mediation, which would be the best way. But I don't feel that it is really going to work out, because in the past several efforts have been made and they did not work. But apart from that, one of the difficult things is going to be, is there a representative body representing the Muslims who will listen to that representative body? That body doesn't exist. So it's a huge community. Is there a representative body of the Hindus to which the Hindus will listen? No. It's a very diverse community with hundreds of sects. And even if the Shankaracharyas were to say this is the way to go with the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, the Bajrang Dal, listen to them, that has not happened in the past. Therefore, how do you feel these 3 men who have been appointed will be able to convince everybody and the entire communities, because it just doesn't involve that 2.7 acres of disputed land, it involves the 2 communities. So it's going to be a tough call. But for the Prime Minister to say, that let's wait for the judicial verdict and for mediation to be given a chance during the poll campaign, there is going to be a reasonableness coming through from the side of the ruling party as opposed to contention. So while you have hyper-nationalism on the one hand, you will have additional thing of reasonableness also on the mandir issue, that we tried mediation. After all, the PM said, we'll first give a chance to the judicial verdict before we consider anything else.
Okay.
So I think there are many
views. I'll have to cut you short there. Nirja, I will have to cut you short there. Yes, there are many views within views. I'll have to cut you short there and come back to you. But R. Jagannathan, in many ways, what the court said today, and if I may quote the Supreme Court, it said, this is not just about the property, but of mind, heart and healing if possible. Has the court somewhere thrown in the towel and said that rationality has no place in faith and religious matters, and which is why mediation has been sought after? Because the reality is, mediation hasn't been opted for before, and is 2 months, largely 8 weeks, a realistic time to resolve a dispute that dates back centuries?
I think the Supreme Court has been clever in this. First thing, it knows that no matter what kind of verdict it delivers, there will be unhappiness on one side or the other. So what it has essentially done is kick the can down the road. What it has asked is this mediation process will take all of 8 weeks. after which they will debrief the mediation committee, which then will take another couple of weeks. So by then the elections will be over, and then hopefully, let's say that the mediation is challenged, then it will come back to court. So essentially what the court has been done, it's actually been dilly-dallying from last October until February. They didn't even start the first set of hearings and things. So I think the court basically did not want this thing to start and become too big right in the middle of the poll campaign. So it will basically start the process after the polls. Once the mediation report is in, whether it succeeds or fails, that is the mediation part, there will still be litigation after the mediation also. And that's what I think we need to understand, that the mere fact that the mediation report is given to the Supreme Court does not bring an end to the matter, because if you know, even people like Subramaniam Swamy, Asaduddin Owaisi have raised objections, which means they can then file another petition saying that this verdict should be kept apart. So I think it's not going to end. It's just kick a can down the road.
No, absolutely. And in fact, that's a larger question that I have towards the end, that are people just refusing to take a call on a matter as sensitive and important as this? But if I may come to you, Mr. Ilyas Sharafuddin, and you know, the question really is that there are commentators on there, and including very prominent Muslim voices, that have said that Muslims must forget and move on. Is the community accommodative of any kind of a solution? Because you seem to be the only one who's at least for mediation. The Ram Mandir, you know, the trust, the Ram Lala, Virajman, or the Hindu Mahasabha are not really in favor of mediation. But first, let me get your views on this. And the point that Nirja made, will the position taken by one member of that mediation panel be binding on the community at large? Is it time to move on, is like what many people say?
I would like to say that let us keep a concordance approach towards the mediation rather than the conflict approach, and let us appreciate whatever the motive of the Supreme Court might be, but it has opened a door of opportunity for one and all. Now coming whether the people of that particular community will agree to that one man or not, I say that let that one man be Justice Kalifullah or let it be Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, bind their decision to the religious scriptures of their own religions. In that way, no Shankaracharya, no Hindu, no Pandit, no Maulana, no Mullah, no Muslim leader will dare try to cross the religious scriptures red line. For the Hindus it is Vedas, Gita, Upanishad, Guru, Puranas, and for the Muslims it is Quran and the Hadith. Let us keep their verdicts, their opinions towards in the light of religious scriptures. Then for a surety, I strongly believe that 1 billion Indians will abide it. They will not try to dare go against it. If anyone doing that, he is not a practical Hindu or a Muslim by faith then.
Okay, okay. You seem to sound very practical, but I don't know if that's agreeable to the... One second. Mr. Chopra, this is ET now, and let me just set some rules here. We don't do the kind of debates that a lot of other channels do. We give each one an opportunity to talk. Please do not intervene when I'm talking, when somebody else is talking. My next question is to you. Of course, this is your chance to respond to what he has said, but if I may also add a question, the former Chief Justice of India, J.S. Kher, had suggested an out-of-court settlement among rival parties. He had said, give some, take some. Why are you still opposed to mediation? Mr. Chopra?
We are not opposed to mediation. We have always wanted direct dialogue with the other party in the title suit, being the Sunni Central Waqf Board. And when Justice Kher brought forward this proposal, we welcomed it. We welcomed a court-monitored direct dialogue process with the other party in the title suit, meaning the Sunni Central Waqf Board. We have, all other mediation attempts in the past have failed because there have always been third parties trying to settle the issues. If we get the opportunity to sit directly opposite the other side, and this mediation process that has been proposed by the Honorable Supreme Court may give us this opportunity. Therefore, we are looking forward to see what is the process that this mediation panel that has been appointed, what is the process that they propose to have? Who are they going to allow to sit together? Please also remember, this mediation panel is there to oversee and monitor, not to impose their own decision or their own ideas on any of the parties. So we are not bound to accept anything that they say. They can only suggest, they cannot impose. Our main case continues in the Honorable Supreme Court. If something comes out of this discussion, it may settle a few issues which will help the Honorable Court later perhaps to focus on a more clarified issue and pass adjudication.
Just a very short yes or no. Is this particular mediation panel acceptable to you?
When the Honorable Court has asked us to present names, we presented the names of 3 retired judges, and we are very happy that Justice Kalifullah is a member of this panel, because his vast experience of so many cases will be able to assist the parties who are involved in this case to perhaps move a few steps ahead. We have full faith in Justice Ibrahim Kalifullah.
Coming back to you, as far as the panel formation is concerned, it's not just about the panel per se being objective, but they also need to be seen to be fair and unbiased, so to say, which is why criticism has erupted over the appointment of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar as a member of the mediation panel, because not so long back he had made statements like, if Ram Mandir issue is not solved, there'll be bloodshed, we will become a Syria in India, Muslims should give up their claim on Ayodhya, and which is why concerns and eyebrows have been raised on his appointment. Are you somebody who shares that concern? Nirja Chaudhary. Nirja.
If at the outset somebody like Mr. Owaisi has questioned the neutrality of the mediators appointed, then what happens down the line? And you will never get 3 mediators who will be acceptable to all sides. And there is, it's not only the 3 parties to the title dispute. There are a whole host of organizations who have to accept this, because there are communities involved. And not only are there communities involved and religious feelings involved, the Ram Janmabhoomi issue and Babri Masjid issue has become a political football for the last so many decades, and it is really fashioned up politics right from the 90s onwards till today.
No, fair point indeed. And okay, Ms. Chopra wants to make a point in there, and then I'll move forward. Go ahead.
You see, as far as a panel of mediators is concerned, the Honorable Court has also said that if this panel feels that more members need to be co-opted, they may do so. And I'm sure that this panel of mediators will look into this carefully and see if there is a need to appoint a few more ex-retired justices to this panel.
So this panel, Mr. Ilyas, do you want to come in on that? Because Sri Sri Ravi Shankar has been in touch with the Shia community. At least that is what has been said publicly. They had expressed their willingness in him being a mediator. Is there any issue whatsoever, that people have? Because some very well-meaning people have raised objections on him being co-opted.
Sri Sri not only associated with Shia community but also with BJP, RSS and VHP too. And in the association only he said that Modi government will bring wonders to the nation, and he also said that India will turn into Syria and so on. So these statements of Sri Sri on record makes his reputation a little bit shoddy and quite suspectable. So because of that, Asad Bhai have raised a valid point that such person can be a non-partisan mediator or not, or he will carry the baggage of his previous ideology along with him. So that is obviously a valid question and based on facts. Regarding Karthik's point that let us have a one-to-one dialogue, I fully agree with him. Let us sit together in the light of religious scriptures of both the religions. Let us have an open dialogue in the public to solve the issue. I will be the one representing the Muslim side, inshallah, if required.
Okay, the reality is that the courts have also wanted the media out of this. So the courts don't want a public shamal being made of this. It will be an on-camera, off-record mediation that will happen. But before I go any forward, and I think one of the questions that was alluded to earlier and comes back to haunt us, and Jaggi, I will ask you this question. There are many out there who believe mediation and out-of-court settlement and dialogue, all very good, all very well-meaning. The reality is that this matter could be solved either by emphatic court order or an emphatic government taking a stand on this, because the buck has to stop. is there also, is the court doing exactly what our politicians have done, which is they fear to tread where angels don't go? They're not taking a decisive call on this. It is, after all, at the end of the day, a title dispute. It's a dispute over property. And instead of, taking it head on and delivering a judgment on a very high voltage political call that it would have been, mediation perhaps is being opted for. Are the courts doing exactly what politicians have done for so long?
Look, I think at the end of the day, courts are human and they know the kind of huge stakes involved in all this. So I think if you look at the Allahabad High Court judgment, which is what this appeal is against, even that they took a very middle path where they said 2 portions they gave to Hindu parties and 1 portion to those. They also tried to take a political approach. They did not take it purely on the legal side. So they tried to say, okay, where the Sriram Birajman is there, that is the central, that Garbhagriha is part of the Hindu thing. It's the other part that they said can be this thing like that. So I think if you actually look at it, courts, I think, cannot afford to look at this purely legalistically because it may not stick. And beyond a point, courts can't enforce what they want enforced. So I think they are taking the long way out. That is, try and deviate the, delay the plan for a few hours, for a few months before this thing, and after that, let it drag on for some more time. So that's what will happen. I don't think the mediation is going to end up anywhere. So let's see. I think it's going to be a difficult call for the courts. Courts cannot do this purely by law. It would have been ideal if private mediation had worked and the efforts taken by the Kanchi Shankaracharya, even the Chandrasekhar government. In fact, the party that should not get involved is all our left historians who actually prevented a solution in 1991 by saying that, oh, there was a Buddhist temple under that and all kinds of things. So I think there are too many vested interests trying to scuttle this. That is also a problem. I think otherwise, if the 2 parties directly involved actually sat down and spoke to each other, the 2 litigants, 3 litigants, they would have been able to solve it much better. Once all the outside parties coming, whether it is a VHP...
But the reality also is... Right. No, Jaggi, you make an important point there that, let's keep the 3-4 other parties out of this. Let the litigants sit there and resolve this matter. If you ask me, in 2010, when the Allahabad High Court gave its judgment in a 2-1 majority, it ruled very clearly 3-way division of disputed area between the Sunni Waqf Board, the Nirmohi Akhada and the Ramlala. But there were reservations even then. And I'm going to take this question straight to both Ilyas and Karthik to answer. That was perhaps the most mathematical approach to this, because there cannot be a more rational approach to what is seemingly a very, very, very sensitive matter. If that wasn't acceptable, I wonder what will, because many people believe, why were reservations raised to that? Ilyas, let's begin with you and then I'll come to Karthik. Give me a minute.
See, I strongly feel that what Jaggi have just now said, it is going to have a very good result if practically delivered. Unfortunately, the vested interests have tried to manipulate the situation and resulting in many local parties becoming national and gaining power as the main political party now in India. So this particular scenario can be strongly changed if the real litigants sit, they just bring out the text, they take out the archaeological survey report, sit with the constitutional experts and try to solve out the matter in the light of Vedas, Gita, Upanishad, Puranas, Quranadis. In that way, I strongly feel that no person from either community dare to go against such particular decision. Unfortunately, that has never took place and many third parties came into the picture and the side hero became hero and gained the power at the center later on.
Okay. Give me a minute, because I want Karthik to come into this as well. There seems to be some meeting of minds. I wish this is how we can resolve the issue. But Karthik?
No, I appreciate what Ilyas... No, I appreciate what Ilyas Bhai is saying. We sparred before, but I fully appreciate what he's saying. What I want to add here is that somebody needs to understand what is our case. You see, the land was taken from us under Section 145 CPC in 1950. We were removed from the site. We were always on the site in possession of the outer courtyard, and the dispute was only about the inner courtyard area on which the structure stood. as far as we were concerned, there was nothing further. In the 1980s, a dispute was created on the outer courtyard. Then again 145 was imposed and we were removed. Kalyan Singh government acquisition of 2.774 acres in 1991, for which the only Hindu party that went to challenge that acquisition and safeguard the rights of Ram Lalla was the Panch Ramanandi Nirmohi Akhada and some Muslim parties. Where were all these other parties at that time? Thereafter, when the judgment came of this, came on 11th December 1992 about quashing this acquisition, in January 1993, the overall area was acquired, the additional 67 acres. Every time this took place, Hindus were moved further and further and further away from the site, and more land came into contention. The actual dispute was originally only over the inner courtyard. Nirmohi Akhada has admittedly been in possession on the site, and there has been no namaz conducted after 1934 on this site. Let us sit with the other party contesting title, namely the Sunni Central Waqf Board, to be able to place our points, our evidences perhaps in front of them, for them perhaps to take an unbiased view on what we are trying to say, and for us to be able to listen to them and then see if we can move a few steps ahead. I do sincerely hope that one can move ahead and put this dispute behind us. It has held our polity and everything else hostage for very long now. But I think that's exactly the closing question, and I'm going to quickly throw this to both Nirja Chaudhary and R. Jagannathan. And Nirja, to you first. In this election season, the 8 weeks are going to get over bang in the middle of elections, I think after the second last for the last phase perhaps. Is this going to impact the polity of elections 2019, or is this an issue off the table for now because it is heading for mediation?
I think it will not impact the elections. As you say, we'll be into almost the second week of May, tail end of the election. And as I said, it will be the reasonableness of the Prime Minister which will be there, waiting for the judicial verdict. The judges have set up mediation processes. So we want to find a way out of dialogue. That will be the kind of narrative. In addition, as I said, to the kind of nationalism we see after Pulwama and Balakot. That's a very interesting cocktail that the BJP will put across. But I think if you want a solution, but I also will say this, that suppose the mediation fails and suppose you have the Modi government return to power, both hypothetical questions, would that arm the Prime Minister if he comes back to power to say mediation was tried, now we go ahead for ordinance and the legislative route, for which he has been under pressure since January by the RSS, Vishwa Hindu Parishad? Will that be something that route become easier for them if they come back to power? And I think as long as when it comes to mediation, I think the only mediation and dialogue that would have a chance of working is if the RSS engages in a real sincere way with a body that's representative of the Muslim community and accepted by them. There used to be the Babri Masjid Action Committee, but I don't know whether that has the kind of credibility today with the Muslims. That is the only way you can have a chance of finding a way out.
I think I've borrowed enough time from the next show. I've got to close this here. The reality is that the mediation panel will let us know about the outcome somewhere in the middle of elections. We do hope this is not going to hold our politics and polity hostage as far as elections are concerned. But what does India want? India wants a solution that is going to permanently get rid of this overhang, this dilemma in Indian polity for very long now. We do hope the mediation panel can get warring factions to sit across the table, explain their points of view and get moving. That's what we want. Thank you very much for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. We take a quick breather. There's plenty more that's happening right here on NEETI now. Do stay with us.